Chapter 10. So let's start. In 1900, old Meldrum, who had succeeded Weatherby as head and had held office for 3 decades, died suddenly from pneumonia, and in the interval before the appointment of a successor, Chips became acting head of Brookfield. There was just the faintest chance that the governors might make the appointment a permanent one, but Chips was not really disappointed when they brought in a youngster of 37, glittering with firsts and blues and with the kind of personality that could reduce Big Hall to silence by the mere lifting of an eyebrow. Chips was not in the running with that kind of person, he never had been and never would be, and he knew it. He was an altogether milder and less ferocious animal. Those years before his retirement in 1913 were studded with sharply remembered pictures. A May morning, the clang of the school bell at an unaccustomed time, everyone summoned to assemble in Big Hall. Ralston, the new head, very pontifical and aware of himself, fixing the multitude with a cold, presaging severity. You will all be deeply grieved to hear that His Majesty King Edward VII died this morning. There will be no school this afternoon, but a service will be held in the chapel at 4:30. A summer morning on the railway line near Brookfield. The railwaymen were on strike, soldiers were driving the engines, stones had been thrown at trains. Brookfield boys were patrolling the line, thinking the whole business great fun. Chips, who was in charge, stood a little way off, talking to a man at the gate of a cottage. Young Cricklade approached. "Please, sir, what shall we do if we meet any strikers?" "Would you like to meet one?" I don't know, sir." God bless the boy, he talked of them as if they were queer animals out of a zoo. "Well, here you are, then, you can meet Mr. Jones, he's a striker. When he's on duty he has charge of the signal box at the station. You've put your life in his hands many a time." Afterward the story went round the school, there was Chips talking to a striker. Talking to a striker. Might have been quite friendly, the way they were talking together. Chips, thinking it over a good many times, always added to himself that Kathy would have approved, and would also have been amused. Because always, whatever happened and however the avenues of politics twisted and curved, he had faith in England, in English flesh and blood, and in Brookfield as a place whose ultimate worth depended on whether she fitted herself into the English scene with dignity and without disproportion. He had been left a vision that grew clearer with each year of an England for which days of ease were nearly over, of a nation steering into channels where a hair's breadth of error might be catastrophic. He remembered the Diamond Jubilee, there had been a whole holiday at Brookfield, and he had taken Kathy to London to see the procession. That old and legendary lady, sitting in her carriage like some crumbling wooden doll, had symbolized impressively so many things that, like herself, were nearing an end. Was it only the century, or was it an epoch? And then that frenzied Edwardian decade, like an electric lamp that goes brighter and whiter just before it burns itself out. Strikes and lockouts, champagne suppers and unemployed marchers, Chinese labor, tariff reform, HMS Dreadnought, Marconi, Home Rule for Ireland, Dr. Crippen, suffragettes, the lines of Catalga. An April evening, windy and rainy, the fourth form construing Virgil, not very intelligently, for there was exciting news in the papers, young Grayson, in particular, was careless and preoccupied. A quiet, nervous boy. "Grayson, stay behind after the rest." Then. "Grayson, I don't want to be severe, because you are generally pretty good in your work, but today you don't seem to have been trying at all." "Is anything the matter?" "And no, sir." "Well, we'll say no more about it, but I shall expect better things next time." Next morning it was noised around the school that Grayson's father had sailed on the Titanic, and that no news had yet come through as to his fate. Grayson was excused lessons, for a whole day the school centered emotionally upon his anxieties. Then came news that his father had been among those rescued. Chips shook hands with the boy. "Well, I'm delighted, Grayson. A happy ending. You must be feeling pretty pleased with life." "Why, yes, sir." A quiet, nervous boy. And it was Grayson Sr., not Jr., with whom Chips was destined later to condole. For more chapters, like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel. Share your opinion in the comments section and see you soon. Bye, Allah Hafiz.